Hello and welcome to Live from America podcast. This is Hatem alongside me, Noam Dworman. Hello, Noam.
Hi, Hatem. Hi.
This is, in my opinion, one of the most important and hardest interviews that I've done. So since October 7th, we interviewed so many people, and we all watch the news, we all watch the media, the streets, and everybody's like, argue, debate, fight. And then we all have the privilege to go home to the safety of our own comfortable home and sleep, you know. But those who are directly like involved in this, they don't sleep, you know. They work and they are like live in a real world, like I call it. So that's why I think their voices need to be heard, and I feel like everybody should listen. Take a moment and listen because they are directly involved in this. We all, like I said, see it from the outside, and yeah, we can have an opinion, but um, they they are the one that suffer, and that's true for everybody in that situation. The hostages, all of them. The civilians in Gaza, everybody that was victims in the October 7th attack or since then. And that's why it's very important to, like I said, to listen and understand. And our guest today is one of those mothers that's directly involved. Rachel Goldberg-Polin. Her son Hersh was captured by Hamas on October 7th while attending the Nova Music Festival. And since that day, every minute of every day, she's been fighting and doing everything she can to bring Hersh back. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you so much for having me. I feel very privileged to be with you.
Thank you. Well, the first thing is like, and I think it's an important question, and I usually end with it, but I want to start with it. What do you think? What do you want the goal from people listening to this or watch this to do? How can the community, government, anybody that can listen help in a way?
It's a very big question. I think first what people can do is hear and understand the story. Um, in this case, I'm happy to share some of my personal story, but I think hearing individuals' stories and understanding the real situation and the broader situation of what's happening and not right away fall into the habits that we all fall into, which is we like to choose a side. I used to play team sports. We like to choose a team. We like things to be easy and digestible. We like things to be black or white, good or bad. And unfortunately, we live in a world of nuance and a world of gray and a world where everything is actually not so distinct and obvious. So I would really encourage people to be able to be open to the idea of holding on to two truths and to trying to humanize people instead of trying to demonize people from whatever side you're coming from and whatever side you're looking at. And I mean, we can get into more of actually what's the advocacy that people can do. Can you write to the White House? Can you wear tape so that it starts conversations with people on the street? Can you order your coffee at your favorite coffee place, and when they ask your name, instead of saying Hatem, saying Hersh or Naama or Omer or Hassam or one of the names of the hostages? There's lots of things that people can do in terms of advocacy, but we can kind of get there a little bit.
Yeah, and to add to that, the word what you say, when people see something like that, don't be. It's not provocative. It's have a conversation. So it's also the people that see it, try to ask and understand. So yeah, why don't you tell us your story? I know you shared a lot, but I think, like I said, it's important.
And it's very important. Well, I'll tell you, my name is Rachel. I'm the mom of Hersh Goldberg-Polin, as you mentioned. I was born and raised in Chicago, as was my husband, John. Our families still live there. Bubby Marcy, Safta Leah, the grandmas. Hersh is our eldest. He is our only son. He turned 23 on October 3rd. He is a laid back, happy-go-lucky, very dry, dark sense of humor, without being mean. He's sarcastic without being mean, which is actually really hard. But there's no mean in Hersh. He is wild about soccer, and he loves music festivals. His genre that he really loves is trance music. I'm not going to make any negative comments about that because I get blowback. People say, you just don't understand it. So because they don't understand it, I'm not going to judge it. In fact, he had gone to Europe this past summer for 9 weeks by himself and traveled to 6 different countries, to 6 different music festivals, and met people from all over the world. And he's had an obsession with geography and the idea of world travel since he was in 1st grade, when he was in Mrs. Carlton's 1st grade class. And she was this elegant and very strict Irish teacher with her beautiful Irish accent. And she told the children in 1st grade that it is shameful that American children know nothing about geography, world geography. And Hersh was super into her, and he just said, bring it on. And he was a voracious reader ever since he's a little boy. He's loved reading. And so we used to go every Tuesday to the library and take out the 12 maximum books you could take out. And his were often all atlases, books about geography, books about trivia about geography. And he would just digest and inhale those. He's had a subscription to National Geographic since he was 6 years old, and he reads it cover to cover like a book. And so that's like a little bit of a primer on who is Hersh. And our family moved from Berkeley when Hersh was 4 years old. We moved to Richmond, Virginia. And then when he was 8 years old, we moved to Jerusalem in Israel. We also have 2 daughters who are 20 and 18. And Hersh was, on October 6th, he was with us. He said he was going to come to synagogue with us. We're a family that goes to synagogue Friday night and Saturdays. In the morning, we go Friday night and Saturday morning. So he said, I'm going to come with you guys to synagogue and to Shabbat dinner afterwards. We were going to friends about 5 minutes away from where our synagogue is. And he said, but I'm bringing my camping backpack because after dinner, Honor and I, that's his best friend from 3rd grade, Honor and I are going to go camping and do something fun. And we said, great. So it was exciting to go to synagogue with him because he had just gotten back from this 9-week trip in Europe. So everyone was excited to see him. And then we went to our dinner, and right around 11 o'clock, he kissed me. He kissed John, my husband, and he said thank you and gave a hug to our hostess. And I thought, what a good boy. And he turned around in the doorway and he looked at me very casually and just said, love you, see you tomorrow. And that was 243 nights ago. So the next morning at 7:30 in the morning, my husband, John, left for synagogue at 7:30. Frankly, that was too early for me. And so I was going to come with the girls a little bit later. And I was having a cup of tea in my kitchen. And right around 8 o'clock, bomb sirens started to go off, which is very unusual in Jerusalem. So I ran and woke up my girls, and we got into our bomb shelter, which is in our apartment, because every apartment that's been built in the last 10 years in Israel has a bomb shelter inside of the apartment. It's part of the zoning that you have to have. So we got into our bomb shelter, which we had never used before as a bomb shelter. And we waited. The protocol is you wait 10 minutes. If you don't hear anything suspicious, an explosive, something scary, you come out. Now, I happen to not use my phone on the Jewish Sabbath. I don't use technology. So we didn't have an idea of what was actually happening. We didn't have a TV on or a radio or the computer. I didn't have my phone. But I said to my girls when we got out of the shelter, which was around 8:20, I said, listen, I know that Hersh and Honor are camping outside somewhere. And I know that somewhere bombs must be falling. And that's why these bomb sirens are going off. It's an emergency. I'm turning on my phone. So I turned on my phone right around 8:20. And in a WhatsApp group that I have with John and Hersh, 2 messages immediately popped up from 8:11. So about 10 minutes before I turned the phone on. And the first message said, I love you. And the second message said, I'm sorry. And, you know, as a parent, or if you aren't a parent, you can picture your own parent, your own mother getting messages like that at 8:11 in the morning when I know he's out with his friend, and my throat closed, my stomach clenched up, and I knew something horrible was unfolding, and I knew he knew something horrible was unfolding, and he was apologizing because he knew that we were going to be in a lot of pain. What I have come to find out is he did think that he was going to be killed. What happened, what we came to find out, is that Hersh and Honor went to the Nova Music Festival. And when the massacre first began, the boys were able to escape to a roadside bomb shelter it was a total of 29 young people who were mashed into a 5-foot by 8-foot bomb shelter. So you can imagine sort of the packed situation. These were all young, crunchy granola. Hersh is, you know, this very Berkeley kind of guy. He's been working for 8 years in a coexistence youth program that brings together Arab Israelis and Jewish Israelis through the lens of soccer. They play soccer together to kind of like demystify the other. And the Nova Festival was advertised as the Festival for Unity, Light, and Peace. And so all those kids kind of were that genre, and they were smashed into this bomb shelter, this roadside bomb shelter, and they were hiding. And Hamas came to the doorway and were tossing in hand grenades, which Aner was standing in the doorway and picking them up and throwing them out, picking them up and throwing them out. We actually have dash cam footage of that because one of the cars that pulled over happened to have a dash cam recorder. And you see Hamas gunmen throwing in hand grenades, and then you see suddenly they come flying back out. It was absolutely heroic and unbelievable. And people should remember the name Aner Shapira because he was such a beautiful, brave soul. And he managed to repel 7 of the hand grenades, which I've since learned when you pull the pin on a hand grenade, you have 4.5 seconds until it detonates. So you can imagine the reflexes that this young man had. And on the 8th, he was holding it. And while he was holding it, it exploded and killed him. And then Hamas came and threw in 3 hand grenades in a row, which caused tremendous carnage with these kids, young people who were in this room. And then Hamas came to the doorway and were just spraying machine gun fire, you know, at these barefoot hippies who were mashed into this shelter. And most of those young people were dead immediately. And a lot of them were in the process of dying. And a few lucky ones were trapped under a very big pile of dead bodies. And I call them lucky because they were covered in so much blood and gore that they could pretend to be dead. And it is from those eyewitnesses that we heard what happened to Hersh, which is Hersh and 3 other young men were slumped against the opposite wall. They were all wounded, but they were exposed and clearly not dead. And Hamas came in, ordered the 4 of them to stand. And when they stood, everyone saw that Hersh's left arm from the elbow down had been blown off. Hersh and I are both left-handed. So it's his dominant arm. Something was tied around the wound. They could see some sort of fabric or something, and then the jagged bone sticking out and no hand. And the boys, I keep calling them boys because to me, you know, these are boys, but you know, it's because I'm old. These young men were marched outside and put on a Hamas pickup truck, and Hersh's last phone cell signal was detected at 10:25 in the morning, Saturday morning, October 7th. And a week later, while we were being interviewed, Anderson Cooper on CNN, he, at the end of the interview, said, "You guys are going to call you now," which I thought was weird, because why? Like, we were done with the interview. But he called, he said, "I didn't want to say anything on air, but while I was interviewing you, I realized that I have footage of the abduction of your son." He had gone down to the Nova site to make a documentary for CNN. And while he was down there, there were soldiers still gathering evidence. It was right after, a few days after October 7th. And they found a GoPro camera that had fallen off of the helmets of one of the people from Hamas. And they shared that with Anderson Cooper. And while he was interviewing us, and it was split screen, and he was looking at photos of Hersh from his trip to Europe last summer, he first of all recognized him. And he remembered seeing the footage of a boy getting onto a truck who didn't have a hand. He saw, yeah, and so he shared that with us, which was actually quite helpful, because the young people who told us their eyewitness accounts were so traumatized that we didn't know exactly what had happened, because they were so filled with shock and horror that it was so difficult for them to share any details with us. So to have that footage was extremely important. And then from, I speak about it and I almost sound robotic, but it's because starting on October 7th, I've lived on another planet. I don't live where you live anymore. I wake up every morning and I make this very concerted effort. And I say, now, pretend to be a human. And I put on this costume and I think I look kind of like a person. And I spray on this pretend strength. And I run to the ends of the earth to save my only son and any of the hostages that can still be saved. And it's a 20 to 21 hour a day job. And you mentioned sleep. Sleep is something that I think will be so nostalgic. It is so nostalgic. It's something I don't really remember what it's like to really sleep. Our family doctor came on the third night and prescribed us these horse pills that are supposed to knock us out from 6 to 8 hours. But there's something about the psyche that after 4 hours, we both wake up with like this jolt. And we start to run. And that's what we're doing. And we meet with anyone all over the world, powerful people, influential people, some people who are very quiet, but who might have influence and power. And we meet people publicly, and we meet people very privately. I've had meetings in countries in Europe where I'm told, don't bring a phone and come by yourself. And I meet men in basements. And I've been privileged to be able to meet with the Pope, and I've been privileged to be able to meet with prime ministers and presidents and many Congress people. And I don't know what will be the key that unlocks this quagmire that we find ourselves in. And it might be you guys. And I don't know. But I'm doing exactly what your mothers would do for you if you were, God forbid, in this situation. And I'll tell you that every day people say, I can't imagine what you're going through. And every day I say, neither can I. I can't imagine what we're going through. And it is so indescribably angst-filled and terrifying and traumatizing that I actually wouldn't wish it on anyone. It's that bad that I actually wouldn't even wish it on anybody. So that's the long answer to tell us a little bit about Hersh.
It is a little bit, because I know that there's so much you can talk about him and about the situation that, and thank you so much for sharing this. And No,
So,
did you want
well,
to? Yeah, you look like you want to.
I'm gonna try to collect myself for this. As I'm listening to you, I can't control my emotions. It's not because I'm Jewish. People will want to conclude that. It's because I'm a parent. Jesus Christ. And because I had a father who loved me very much. And I can only imagine. And I don't know how you do it. And of course, this is not a disclaimer, it's true. My mind has gone close to this place when I think about the poor children dying in Gaza. Although I haven't gone quite to this place because of the intention of it all. And the intention does strike additional emotional chords. It's not just people suffering and dying, it's the intention that people suffer and die that is impossible to digest. It's impossible for me to digest it when I see Israelis. I haven't seen Israelis do this, but I've seen them operate cruelly, and I'm disgusted by it, and I just can't. I told Hatem before we did the interview that I wasn't looking forward to it because I knew what this would bring up in me. But as a journalistic matter, Jesus, I want to ask you a few questions that people will want to know. I'll just do the most difficult one because it's the only one that really matters, I think, which is in a zoomed out way. The impossibility of the situation is something I don't know how to deal with. I know for sure if I were in your shoes what I would want. But the overall picture of a notion that a country can come in, kill thousands of people, bomb people, and then get a pass for it by taking hostages is not a tenable way for the world to work. It only becomes tenable in this situation if it's accompanied by a removal of the threat in the future so that Hamas doesn't get to rerun this show, over and over. And I don't know what your thoughts are on that problem, and I hope you don't think it's inappropriate for me to ask it. But it's the only question which I don't know in my heart how to answer that. I don't know, and of course I'll just say, I don't know all the various scenarios and things which are going on in Israel that you would be privy to that can somehow satisfy both pressing needs, the needs for Israel to have deterrence and the need to get your boy home. So whatever you want to say about that.
Well, the first thing that I'd like to say is I appreciate your emotion and your humanity in feeling so empathetic. I think what's been really confusing for people who have been talking to us since the beginning is on the very first day, I said, I'm very worried about the innocent civilians in Gaza. And people did not know how to swallow that. And that has been the drum that I have been beating. And when I was saying, it's very important for people to hold two truths. When I spoke on day 18 at the United Nations in New York, I spoke about this. I'm worried about the hundreds of thousands of innocent Gazan civilians, all these innocent people living in Gaza, including the 125 who were dragged there on October 7th, who are innocent civilians who are living in Gaza. Now, of all of those, 2.2 million people who are innocent, there are a lot of them who are innocent, who are living in Gaza. I only know one well, and that's Hersh. And we share the same DNA, and he lived in me for 9 months. But I worry also for the people who look just like me, their mothers just like me there, who are innocent Gazans. And I think sometimes that gets lost in this whole idea of us versus them. Again, people love a good adversarial paradigm. And I think that it's served all of us very poorly in world history and right now around the world, and all the conflicts that are around the world. I think God graced us with intellect and insight, and we have failed to figure out a way to use those gifts to get us to a better place. I am very worried, and yet hope is mandatory. Obviously, we don't want to ever see October 7th replicated again. We also want the Gazan people to have a way of life that gives them hope and a future and self-determination and the freedoms that people in aspiring democracies get as part of the package, and they haven't had that. Right now, I don't know what will be with this proposal that's on the table. We've been in this scenario before, so I try to really moderate, regulate my, I don't want to get my hopes up to have them dashed. But as a parent, I want my child home. I spoke to a friend who really wants her grandpa home. He's there, a grandpa. There are people who really want their daughters home, their daughters who's the last time they saw them, they were wearing sweatpants that had blood all over the back. And that's the last video that they saw of their 19-year-old daughter. Carmel Gott is a yoga teacher. She's 39 years old. She's a physical therapist. She was visiting her parents on a kibbutz for Shabbat, and she hasn't been home in 242 days, and yet there are the footage of babies being pulled out of rubble and innocent people being killed or injured in Gaza. I mean, this is a heartbreaking human condition, and there is no competition in pain, and there's no competition of tears. And as there was an amazing article that I read in the beginning of this that said, if you only cry when one side's babies die, then your moral compass is broken, and that means your humanity is broken. And I think that amidst this trauma and terror that the hostage families are going through every single day, I am so heartened that I think that my humanity is still intact, because I read Al Jazeera so that I can see both sides. And I think the media is a complete tool, but every single form of media, but I want to get different viewpoints. And when I see those pictures, my eyes well up with tears. And that makes me know that I'm still a person, even though I am living on another plane.
Yeah.
Can I ask one more question? Then I might be done. Is it your impression that a different Israeli leadership could have brought the hostages home by now?
I'm not a geopolitical expert and I'm not a military tactician, but I think that we as the human race have failed these people. Of the 125 remaining hostages, they represent 24 different nations. They are Christians, Jews, Muslims, Hindus, and Buddhists. I think it's interesting that people really want to make this hostage cohort into a monolithic, homogenous group of people. I very rarely, when I'm trying to do advocacy for this, hear anybody advocating for the Muslim Arabs who were dragged there, who are still there with Hersh today. I very rarely hear people advocating for the Thai Buddhists who were dragged there that day, who are being held hostage. I very rarely hear people doing advocacy for the Black African Christians who are being held hostage, the Nepalese, the Argentinians, the Germans, the Polish, the Hungarians. I think that this is a failure of the human species. I wouldn't necessarily, although pointing fingers and blame is super fun. I completely get why people do it. And I also worked for years with children. So it's a very familiar trope of like, it's him. No, it's him. It wasn't him. It was him. And so I get that. It's not really productive. And if we want to go back far enough of who's to blame here, you know, you can go back to the Bible and you can blame God for saving Ishmael when, you know, when Abraham, according to, you know, the Old Testament, there's the story of when Abraham casts out his oldest son, Yishmael, in English, Ishmael, and his mother Hagar, and Ishmael starts to die he runs out of water, and he calls out to God, save me. And in the commentary, the angels, the ministering angels say to God, right as God's about to save him, they say, God, don't save him. Do you know who he's going to be? He's going to be the father of all your people's future pain. He's going to be the father of Amalek. He's going to be the father of Haman from the Purim story. He's going to be the father of the Nazis. He's going to be the father of all the future pain and enemies of your people. But God saves him because God is God of mercy and grace and compassion. And so what's interesting to me is when people here are saying, well, it's because we did this, and it's because 10 years ago we did this, and it's because we did Oslo, and it's because, you know, David Ben-Gurion did this. You want to keep going back and play the blame game? Blame God.
I just saw Hatem disappear like in Back to the Future. You know, this when you go back in time and Ishmael is gone, and then Hatem, it's okay, he's back, Hatem. You're still with us, thank God.
You know, I'm so like from the beginning of this show, I always say, you know, it's become like a sports competition. It's one root for one, and regardless of what they do, they go for it. You know, oh, they always right and always. And when you bring a bad story, a horror story like your story, people were like, what about this? What about this? Instead of focusing in one story at a time. And it is true that, you know, obviously there's thousands of people that's suffering from both ends, you know, and right now in Gaza and Rafah and all these guys, you know, are suffering. But again, I say something similar to you, like mankind have let humanity down. It reminds me of the last scene of Planet of the Apes when the guys, what have you done, humans? What have you done? You know, so, and people be like, all the experts, they don't have, and they get so angry and they get all sorted, and they don't have the class of the way you're talking. They don't have the courtesy of feeling the pain of other people and mothers. Like you said, I said it, you know, when it first came out, nobody mentioned the Arab and Muslim hostages. Nobody mentioned the Christian hostages, and they're part of it. No one ever, because it doesn't fit the agenda. You know, it doesn't. But if, and this is one of the things, if you put, I'm going to quote you in day 222, what you said. If you put me in a room, you and John, if you put us in a room with a mother of a Gaza, mother from Gaza and a father, we will make a deal in 1 hour. Because a lot of times people is like, oh, we know what's best for you. We are the leader. We're thinking about the future. Well, everybody have blood in their hands. In my opinion, whoever is governed, you know, and they think they know so much, but have they really done the best for us? You know, have they really done? So, you know, I think people need to stop the war immediately, release the hostages, and start being human. I know it sounds like, oh,
Look,
la, la, la,
Hatem,
but
I just because people, this is going to live forever, and you know, everybody should say whatever they want, especially in such an emotionally charged situation. But I just want to register that I do not see Hamas and the state of Israel as opposite sides of the same coin. There is much
But I'm
that
not saying
Israel
Hamas and Israel. I'm saying
there's
Palestinian
much
people.
that Israel may have to account for and be ashamed of, but they're not the same. It's not the same. Period.
Well, I
In my
mean,
opinion, you don't have to. Let's not argue about it.
no, I'm not. I'm not
I don't. I
arguing.
don't want to discuss it. I
Yeah,
just want to register
I'm.
it so nobody thinks that I'm in agreement. But go ahead. You said don't.
Well,
Let's not. Please. No. Let's not
I'm
answer
not.
it.
I'm not talking
Move on.
about this. I'm just mentioning the Palestinian people. But I would like to, Rachel. I want to, specifically what you said in day 22, because I think this is in any problem. If you have the real humans, they would make a deal. Um, you saw a video recently of your son final, which is, in a way, I feel like it's comfortable. Also it's painful, I'm sure. Uh, do you have any comments on that since you saw that video? Do you wanna?
So,
Yeah.
sure. So on day 201, I had been at the office. I'm in our office right now. I had been at our office. I had to go home for some reason, which I can't remember. And John was still here with the team. And he called me, and I could tell he was outside and he was running. And he said, I'm running home. I just got a phone call from US and Israeli intelligence. It was a joint call warning that a video of Hersh is going to be released within the hour, and they don't know what the video is of. They just know that it's of Hersh. So I quickly called our daughters, who were both not at home, and I said, do not look at your phones. Something is coming out. Come home. And each of them were out of the city in different places. And I said, something's coming out about Hersh, but I didn't know what it was. And I was scared that I didn't want them to see it without me seeing it first. Then we had to call, our family. I mean, there are grandparents involved. Like, imagine grandparents being involved in this. And my dad lives in Florida. My mom lives in Chicago. John had to call his mom and his siblings, and we were, just warning everyone, don't look at your phones, don't look at the news. There's something about Hersh coming out. And then he came in, and then we knew it was going to come out. And then John suddenly said, oh, shoot, I have to download Telegram. I don't even have Telegram. We knew it was coming out on Telegram. And I was on the phone with my dad when John said, it's out, it's out. So I hung up with my dad and I sat on the couch next to John. And it's difficult to describe. What happened is the second that we heard his voice, we both started crying. And we didn't really pay attention to what he was saying. First of all, in that video, he's speaking in Hebrew, which is not our language.
I was
Which
gonna ask you, yeah, about that. Yeah.
I've never heard Hersh speak Hebrew. I mean,
Obviously, they made
we
him.
live here,
Yeah.
but our language, we are American. We moved here when John and I were almost 40. So we're like any immigrant family that at home speaks their home language. So, but just hearing his voice and seeing him move, obviously, as a mother, as a father, it's crushing to see your child in a compromised and fragile medical condition, which he clearly is, but he's alive. And I'll take it. When you're dying of hunger for so long and somebody comes and gives you a moldy crumb, it's delicious. And we took it. And it's interesting because someone just asked me today, do you watch it all the time? I watched it 3 times. I listened to it. We watched it together. I watched it one more time. And then I listened. I just wanted to hear his voice. And, intelligence has told us that he was reading a script. He's very animated, which is really not like him. He's a very laid back kind of guy. And he's shouting a bit and gesturing with his right arm, which is not his dominant arm. And then at a certain point, it's a pretty long video. It was 2 minutes and 43 seconds or 39 seconds. I don't remember, and then he suddenly says, and now to my family. And it's like his whole body relaxes, and he's still speaking in Hebrew, and he calls us out by name, each of us. And you know what? I don't care if it was scripted. said, I don't care. I will take it. He says,
He's
I
alive.
love you and I miss you. And I know you're working hard to get me out, which I don't know if he knows that. I mean, maybe he knows that from the script. And he says, I need you to stay strong for me, which was interesting to me because I have been shouting and saying for all of these, 8 months at this point, I love you, stay strong, survive. I love you, stay strong, survive. I love you, stay strong, survive. That is my mantra. I say it all the time, every day, all the time. And I ask people to say it because I don't know how the universe works. Maybe he'll hear you, Noam. Maybe if you talk to him, when people say, what can I do? And we have thank God we have a social media guru, Dahlia, who is so talented and is young. And she's the one who told us right away, early on, we've got to spread advocacy. And this is the way the world works. You need Instagram, you need Facebook, you need Twitter, now I'm old. I have none of those things. I never had any of that. I always thought, I don't understand. I wasn't friends with this boy when I was in kindergarten. Why would I be friends with him now? Like with Facebook, it just didn't make sense to me. Thank God we had these young people who were part of the team.
But you have more than what's important. You are
Can,
real.
can I
That's
ask
more important than anything,
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, but before
Sure.
that, I just want to say one thing quickly, because I know that you said in the video that sometimes you walk and you talk and you don't know if it gets to him. And I tell you from my experience, it does.
Oh, good.
So
Good. Well, talk to him.
I will.
Hatem.
And yeah, and we'll do more than that, just talking. But yeah, go ahead, Noam.
Did the Israelis indicate to you that it, as a possible hope, that because there's a video of him, which means that they know exactly where he is, and he's in somebody's inner circle, and because somehow maybe reputationally it would look worse for them if this hostage that they've shown to the world is badly treated, or God forbid, something terrible happens to him. Did you feel that this gives you a better hope that he will survive this because he's the one that they have chosen to make videos of, and they know exactly, they claim they don't know where a lot of hostages are, right? They know exactly where he is, and clearly he's with the decision makers.
Well, I'm not sure. This whole thing, I wish that there was a handbook, and I do feel like, please God, Hersh will come home and maybe we will actually have to write a handbook, although I'm hoping that no one else ever has to go through what we're going through. But it's interesting, the question, because I think it was 30 hours later that there was a second video that was released of Keith Siegel and Omri, who Keith is also American. He was born and raised in North Carolina, and Omri is Hungarian, and their videos were released and within such proximity to Hersh's. And, I just don't know how to read it. I did have the same response you had, where I know for a while people were saying, we don't know who's alive and we don't know where they are. And for us, it was like, oh my gosh, well, he's alive and you know where he is because actually he's in front of the camera. So, and then the same feeling with Keith and Omri. However, as you guys probably read this horrible news that came out yesterday, there were 4 men who have been confirmed to have been killed a few months ago in captivity. And 3 of them had been in a video that was released after, apparently, actually, and even the 4th one was also in a video. It said the 3 older gentlemen were in a video together a few months ago. And then the younger man, he's 51. And forgive me, I just am blanking on everyone's names because I used to be really good with names and memory, but if you don't sleep for 8 months, bad things happen. All of them had videos released in the last few months. And so that it kind of makes me, concerned.
I didn't know about that.
Yeah, that just happened. But look, we remain hopeful and optimistic and praying, and I don't know how to read any of it. It's a completely different universe. And I pray that every single hostage is precious to whoever's holding them, and that they are trying to treat them kindly. I don't know if they're being held by families or by people who are, just guards. I have no way of knowing, and I'm praying that they have in them some sort of humanity for these poor cherished souls who shouldn't be there.
All right. Hatem, I think we should let Rachel go. It's enough. It's enough for her, I think. Enough.
Yeah, just a
I
couple of
will just tell you guys that if you go, when you asked in the beginning,
yeah.
Hatem, what people can do, we have on Instagram, Bring Hersh Home is our channel everywhere. Bring Hersh Home, and it's spelled Hersh. There are like 19 different ways to spell it, but that's actually the way we spell it. And I'm mentioning it only because there's a button of what can I do?
Yeah.
And then we have a bunch of different things, because for different people, different things are comfortable. And for some people, some things are just out of their comfort zone. And some people read things and say, that is for me. That's the thing I'm going to do. And so if people would like to help with advocacy, which I think is critical, and with moving the needle on this, not just for Hersh, but for all 124 remaining hostages, we're in an excruciating place, and within this elegant torture, anyone who wants to help, and it becomes this existential help, because people will write, we're praying for you, and
Yeah.
someone, I don't believe in prayer, so I just talk to the universe, and you know what, that helps. I don't
Yeah.
know how, it helps.
I think well, I do have a message for everybody who's like listening or watching. First, try to share it, no credit needed, just share it, share this message, just share this part. I'm gonna put it everywhere. And today, not tomorrow, but today, but even before that, I want you to take all your anger out and focus on one story right now. There's like you said, there's pain is not a competition. There's million stories and we all want to try to help everybody, but focus on one, listen to the pain of one person and try to help one at a time. We will be able to help everybody if we do that. So today, try to, election is coming, try to reach out to your local people, make a video, and the video should not be a competition, like we said, of pain, of like who have it more, but have a legit video say like, can we just end this? Can we release the hostage? Have a specific video for her. Like you said, I'm going to share the link in the description of this show. But, today reach out to your local congressperson or, anybody that that can help. Anybody's listening, let's end this, let's
I think everyone in the region is ready to not be miserable, and we need some sort of pressure released. And I do think that the beginning of the release of that pressure begins with the return of these hostages, who really represent the whole world. They really truly represent the whole world. There's almost someone from everywhere. There's someone from, the 5 largest religions in the world. And I think that it's just time. It's time for relief.
And if someone listened to this and they are influential, and I know who you are, there's a lot of people that listen to this that say, do it. Nobody's gonna hold you accountable to like, oh, which side. It's not about sides. It's human life. Let's try to get them out. Let's try to end this war. And we taping another podcast on Thursday, and I hope before that we interview Hersh.
Right. I was going to say, next time you have me, you'll have Hersh next to me.
Yeah, I'm saying, but I want that to be before.
It's not just a mother. It's not just a mother saying her son is so wonderful. You'll
yeah. And yeah, you are amazing. You hold yourself with class, and that's what I'm saying. You can have a lot of people in TV talking and doing this, but they don't have the pain, they don't feel the pain, and they don't carry it, and they don't see it the way you see it, which I think is true. Is like suffering is from all ends, but I hope your suffering and everybody else's ends.
Okay.
ASAP. Noam, you want to say anything before we
No,
go?
I want to let the poor mother go. I know that she's putting on her game face, but enough.
So
Well, thank you both, and we should merit to hear wonderful, miraculous news soon. I really appreciate you carving out the time to meet with me.
yeah,
You're very
Rachel, can you
brave.
hold on one
Very
second
brave.
after I stop recording? Well, thank you very
Sure.
much. Yep.